Reboot It! Welcome back to Reboot It, the world's greatest comic and film and TV podcast / YouTube show. We're the Reboot Crew, and we are here once again, special edition, because for the second time this summer, they've come up against us, tried to do it better, and may or may not have succeeded. Today, we are talking about Fantastic Four First Steps, comparing and contrasting it back to our 2020 reboot of the Fantastic Four. I am producer Bill, former development executive, current creative, and much happier now. And with me, as always, is the Reboot Crew, starting to my immediate right, left, Billy Business.
Right.
How are you today? There you go.
I'm fantastic, Bill.
Good to hear.
Yeah.
Below me, underneath me, as always, Ed Greer. How are you today?
What is up, my mans? This has been a long time coming. I think our Titanic battle with the Marvel Studios has been a long time coming, and I'm ready to get it on.
I have a feeling it's just heating up. I think there are more Marvel reboots in our future. But finally, down kitty corner from me, Ron Swallow. Ron, how are you feeling tonight?
I'm pretty good. And in fact, you know what? I'm so good and I'm feeling so confident that right now I want all of you out there to realize that we have got the greatest show on the internet and that you should be sharing with all of your goddamn friends. All right. We're fantastic. You know, sometimes I like to be like, hey, it would really help us out. No, it would help you out and it would help the world out to share what we do here. I'm 100% serious about that at this point because we are good at this shit. I'm just going to say it. We're funny, we're entertaining, and we really are interesting storytellers. I just want to say it. Just going to do it.
I think Ron is riding high because we all just saw Fantastic Four First Steps, and we got some thoughts, possibly positive, possibly negative. I want to go around the horn just to set the stage right quick. As if you've watched this show before, you may or may not know that especially Ron tends to be very enthusiastic about most pop culture things in our wheelhouse. And this could not be more in Ron's wheelhouse. So I want to start, Ron, top level thoughts about the movie. What did you think?
It was fine.
Shots fired.
Look, and here's the crazy part. It was fine, and by far, it's the best Fantastic Four movie that we have ever seen at the same time, which I don't know what that means. But, you know, I don't think this is a bad movie. Like, to be clear, I don't think it's bad, and I don't think it's fair to call it bad. I guess those are the top level thoughts. I had a fine time. I went to the movies.
That works perfectly. Ed, you also went to the movies. What are you thinking right now about that movie?
I don't know, man. I spilled my popcorn. Maybe that tampered it down a little bit. Now I really think that I'm not as maybe down. Not down. Ron is not down on anything. He's never down on anything. But me personally, I was just so transfixed by the fact that they did all that stuff they came to do that I was like, okay, I wasn't ever going to be super enthused about this. But for people who came to do a certain thing, they did that thing. You know what I mean? And it seems like damning with faint praise, but it's like, how could this, we're going to get to this later, but how could this be some super innovative, super fresh thing? Literally, how could it be given the track that they went on? So,
yeah, I would say it is a less than ambitious movie for sure. But Billy, round us out. What were your top level thoughts walking out of Fantastic Four First Steps?
I texted Ron because Ron doesn't mind if I had to talk to somebody after. And I was like, this was a 6 out of 10, but that was about 4 or 5 hours ago. It dropped a whole nother. It's a 5 at best. I would give it a 4 just to be gimmicky, but it's the list of things that just turn me off on this movie is growing the longer I think about it. And yeah, I didn't have a ton of fun with this one. It wasn't poorly made, anything like that, but I cannot see myself watching this multiple times.
That's an interesting point. I might agree with you. I don't know if the rewatchability is really there with this one. I also don't know, though, if I'm as low on it as you are. I think I might trend more toward where Ed is at, but we're going to unpack it as we get deeper into this episode. First, though, because this is a compare and contrast, let's take a look at what we did, because this was a whole 5 years ago, and I know that we've refreshed ourselves, and you, viewer, if you haven't, that's fine. We're going to do it for you here. But just know, if you go to our channel page, you can see both our original live reboot of Fantastic Four and our reboot rewind, our after show, where we kind of unpack it a little bit more once we've had some time to reflect. But now we're going to do the compare and contrast. So let's roll a clip with the summary of our Fantastic Four.
All right. So the pitch. Sue Storm is an agent of SWORD, which stands for Sentient Weapon Observation Response Division. She is assigned to keep tabs on enigmatic industrialist genius Reed Richards. Her brother Johnny Storm is a pilot in SWORD, and Ben Grimm is his superior officer. Ben and Johnny are part of the platoon of SWORD agents sent along with many of Earth's mightiest heroes. Their mission? To take on a threat that approaches from deep space. Sue thinks that this is an obvious trap, and after trying to convince her superiors this is a bad move, she goes to Reed Richards. Reed fires up a teleportation machine, and they go to rescue Ben and Johnny. The event happens, which causes all of the superheroes to disappear and blows up the SWORD base. Our four heroes are the only survivors of the event. They are bathed in cosmic energy as they teleport back to Earth. Unbeknownst to them, the event was a trap sprung by a Skrull sleeper agent, Earth, and Graviton, a SHIELD SWORD scientist willing to betray his planet for superpowers and a leadership position. The unique energies of the event transformed the undercover Skrull scientist into the Super Skrull. The Super Skrull has flame powers, the ability to change into rock, stretching powers, and invisibility and powerful force fields. He's by far the most powerful super being on Earth. When Reed, Sue, Johnny, and Ben get back to Earth, they discover each of them has one of the Super Skrull's powers. All over Earth, secret Skrulls emerge to take over the planet now that they have a champion. The Super Skrull is holding our planet hostage until the Skrull Empire can get here and fully take over the planet. Graviton goes on a crime spree, pulling up old SHIELD bases, stealing secrets, etc., with no one to stop him. So it is up to the Fantastic Four to stop the Super Skrull, root out the Skrull's secret invasion, stop Gravitron, and get all the heroes back from the negative zone. The fate of the Earth depends on whether this group can become a family and whether this family can become a team.
So that's, top level thoughts. We were essentially remixing Secret Invasion from the comics with the Super Skrull story, and a little bit of flavors of some other stories early in the Fantastic Four's run. But the whole idea was that on a granular level, the characters were essentially learning how to become a family by learning to trust each other. There were a lot of sort of split allegiances. Sue Storm working as an agent of SWORD, kind of spying on Reed, not sure if she trusts him. Ben as Reed's friend within SWORD, kind of turning on the organization. Reed not trusting SWORD, and nobody really trusting Johnny because he's a bit of a hothead, as they might say. And, I thought that was a very effective sort of through line from an emotional and character growth standpoint. I want to start there, maybe talking about the new movie. In this one, there's not a lot of growing for the Fantastic Four to do. The plot is really as bare bones as you could get. Like, Sue Storm learns she's pregnant. The Silver Surfer shows up on Earth. The Fantastic Four track the Silver Surfer back from whence she came. And when they encounter Galactus, Galactus says, "I won't eat your planet if you give me your baby." They say no, they escape, and then they essentially try to fortify the Earth for Galactus's invasion. The Silver Surfer stops them, and so then they have to make one final gambit to trap Galactus on the far side of the universe. Within that, I really found there just wasn't a lot of character work being done. I don't know, guys. Any thoughts on like the character arcs in this movie? You've got 4 main characters, and I feel like I didn't get a satisfying arc for any of them.
First
No,
off,
that
before
was.
we
Oh, go ahead, Ron. You start.
look,
You start.
look. It's very important that I make this joke. It's crazy to me that Galactus is basically fat bastard. Give me that baby. Put it in my belly. That's wild.
You know what was wild? And I think I'm the only person on the planet that was bothered by this. Sue didn't wash her hands after she freaking was on the toilet peeing on the stick. And the whole scene, I was just like, don't touch anything. You didn't wash your hands. And I literally could not concentrate that whole first scene because of that. I'm sorry. Maybe it's because I have a wife and I have kids and I know like you have to really pee on that thing. Like that's disgusting. Anyways, that aside, I'm in this, dude. No, seriously, not even a bit. That was the first thing. I was like, "What are you doing? Don't touch that! Don't touch that!" It's like my daughter. Like, wash your hands. What are you doing? I was in the same boat where I felt like the only character that I felt like they were starting to get an arc, and I really thought was interesting, was when she reads like, "I have to think of the worst things because that's the only way that I can fix anything." And then it's like it was solved like 5 minutes later when Sue goes out and tries to do her speech that rallies everyone. I thought Johnny was such a wet blanket. He did zero charisma, like no growth. I believed that him and that Chris Evans and Jessica Alba, they had a brother sister. I loved the Thing, Torch in those old movies. Like, just no one felt like they felt like a team, but they didn't feel like a family. And I don't feel like anyone grew. I don't feel like anyone's different by the end. I just felt like no character. I didn't walk away feeling like I knew any character better by the end than I did when it started.
And also, let me just say this, Billy, you're the only one who has kids here, so but you guys can still relate to this. Would you use your baby as bait for Galactus?
Can I tell you the most deranged part of all of this? And I texted our friend Doug afterwards, and I was like, obviously spoilers. I guess we didn't say that up front, but obviously spoilers. But it's like,
yes,
yeah. They recycle about 4 key moments from the 2007 movie, which first of all, I was like, really? We're doing that part again? But the deranged part was Sue is dead on the ground. The last thing I'm going to do is let my baby crawl on the corpse of my dead wife. What if she didn't come back? They're just sitting there letting their baby just crawl all over a dead body. That is deranged. And it didn't give me the Avengers moment of like when Hulk gets Iron Man back. I was like, I know she's coming back, obviously, but in a vacuum, this moment is so weird. And if God forbid, if my wife was dead on the floor, I'd be like, go in the other room. We got to get out of here. I don't want you around this. Like, strange, awful, terrible, terrible, terrible.
Not made better by the awful CGI baby in that scene either.
Like Twilight level of CGI baby.
Oh man, these fucking fake babies. Look, guys, I personally, I cannot believe I have been boxed into defending this movie. I can't believe it. Oh my god, this is like Bizarro world.
Well,
it's
we know that you don't
world.
care about babies. That's why. Billy hates animals.
Apparently
hates babies. So,
dude, no, I mean, I don't think I hate babies at all, and but I do think babies make great bait for like Galacti when you need to get you a Galactus. Look, man, I personally felt like, again, I think that's what was in my initial comments. It came to do what it came to do. It was not interested in a new version of these relationships, because I think it felt that a lot of these other movies had tried to do a new version of these relationships. Even in the first one with the Albas and shit, it was a slightly different dynamic than we would normally get from so-called Fantastic Four. I think Fantastic Four feels like best when it's a worn-in thing, when it's already worn in. And I think that's what made them go in this direction. So yes, we have banter that isn't quite convincing, but it seems like indicative of them. they're doing their little shit. And I felt like Billy doesn't like the way the family was rendered, but for like, you know, super rich, live in an ivory tower, everybody gives you a BJ when you leave your fucking office type people. They seem to be kind of grounded, kind of eat together, kind of do different, you know what I mean? They didn't have a whole bunch of time to do all this stuff. To Bill's point, the plot is so bare bones. It's like Escape from New York with Fantastic Four in it. You know what I mean? Like it's very,
wait,
very,
wait.
like,
How do they not have time to do these relationships when the plot is so bare bones? Then like, what are we doing for 2 hours? Like, I guess that's the point. It's like, if you weren't gonna try to reinvent the wheel with the plot, that's fine. That's fine. But I never once convincingly thought that anyone was a family outside of Reed and Sue being a couple. Like, I just never, there was no convincing moment that made me think that Sue and Johnny ever grew up together. Like, nothing. Like,
okay,
even just the petulant little.
Yeah,
sure.
if I could acquiesce to that point. For me, Johnny was a fizzle. If there is one culprit in this thing not quite super working, it is the fact that I never believed anything about Johnny. And when they try to do shit with Johnny that was like out of character in the movie, we could explore later, like how he like solves a
master linguist
thing.
Johnny Storm.
Sure, and I was just like, bro, this is just like, I mean, I guess in the 90s is when they started putting like black guys in computer chairs and shit. You know what I'm saying? They're just like, I'll throw you a bone. We don't want to make you a thug anymore. So now you can be the guy in the chair and like you can be smart at computers and go touchdown and shit like that. And it's like, what the fuck are you throwing that bone to that guy, to Johnny for? Like, that's not what he's for. That's what are you doing? It's just crazy.
I want to jump on that because I think this movie suffered from something that we're seeing more and more of, and even a little bit in Superman, which we touched on in our other special edition episode, is like it seemed like we were getting sketches of plots in this movie that were in a version that we didn't see. Like the whole thing with the Thing and not Natasha Lyonne's character. It's like, why cast Natasha Lyonne and create that character for 3 scenes and about 7 lines? You know what I mean? And it's like, maybe there was a version of this movie where the Thing was wrestling more with the idea of like, I'm a monster and I can't connect with real people, but we didn't get it in this movie. And I think
not to be real quick, not to be crass, but like you got 3 days to get it on with somebody, and Natasha Lyonne's giving you the poker face eyes. You got to get on that. You know, to Billy's point, there was time in this plot for that to happen. You know what I'm saying?
And I think that applies to every single one of these characters, maybe with the exception of Sue. I felt like I didn't. Maybe her relationship with their aide, there was something there that could have been with Sue. But like Reed, Billy pointed it out, seemed to have notions of this idea that like he's burdened by having to think through all of the worst case scenarios. But like you never actually get even a single scene of how that like affects him emotionally. Johnny there seems to be gestures of the idea that Johnny is not taken seriously and never contributes anything to the team. But because they never actually show us anything about that, it just seems like, yeah, he's just a guy who's good at shit and he holds up and decodes a language. And it's like, there's nothing that the actions that they take throughout the plot buck against in terms of character, which I thought was so disappointing.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm just,
well, let's.
Let me say, I want to say a couple of nice things. That's what I want to do. That's what I was going to
do too, but you start, Ron. Yeah. Go ahead.
Perfect. First off, I want to say that some of the visuals were dope as shit. I
think like all the visuals were pretty great, except for some shoddy CG.
Yeah. But that Kirby moment where we had all those like arms and mechanical stuff inside of Galactus's ship and all that shit looked amazing. Yeah. That part where Silver Surfer is surfing the inside of what looks like a warp hole, that shit is dope. Like there were a bunch of really, really great like scenes like that I like really enjoyed. But now I want to just talk about what you mentioned, Bill, which is now you got me thinking. I think there's 30 or 40 minutes they cut out of this movie. like, what's the shot with the black lady who's like clearly agreeing with her while she's doing a speech in front of the Baxter building, but there's no reason for her to be a one-on shot except for that we get to see her on the show that one time. Like, is there a whole plot with that? Is there something that they didn't show us? Because I would like to know what that was, because it felt like there was supposed to be some kind of personal like connection with them that I didn't get to see. You know, there's a few things like that. Well, like, maybe for all we know, like, we even got a few lines where Johnny was like, it turns out like he did take multiple languages as a youngster or something.
Well,
like,
Yeah.
just like there's these things that feel missing. You know, the stuff you said about Reed. I mean, it's a lot of it. It's like, what did we leave on the cutting room for? And but again, we're back to positives. The positive stuff that I felt about it was I really felt like it looked cool, and I was in it. It got me interested in seeing where it was gonna go, and then it didn't take me where I wanted to be, but I was interested. Like, how are they gonna solve this problem? Which one of these guys is gonna come up with the really smart like way around all of these problems and actually like make it happen? But I also, part of me thought that they were going to end up in the MCU in an obvious way, which they didn't do that. So anyway,
No,
there was a line where maybe I misheard it, but it's like right as she's giving the baby, they say something about a star or black, I don't know, but they're like, we don't know where we could end up. He's like, just do it. And I was like, oh, maybe this is going to come back of how they they ended up back on Earth and she had a baby, and there we go. Sue in a maternity Fantastic Four shirt was just like, what are we doing? Like,
also can't wait for the Neil Tyson talking about having a baby in zero gravity, by the way.
Which, by the way, the baby that came out of her must have been magical, because that was a 4-month-old baby. That does not what a baby. There is no baby that's like, hey, I'm alive. Like, your baby's like, oh shit, these are eyes. Like, how do I open them? Like, that's what a baby looks like.
That's cosmic mutant Franklin Richards.
Right. And also, nobody, and The Rock means nobody, wants to really see real newborn babies, nor does any parent worth their salt want to give a newborn baby to a movie production. I mean, what?
You're gonna CGI the baby anyways, and I don't. And let me tell you something,
make it smaller.
Go watch The Pit. That's a newborn baby, and that's the bottom line because Billy Business said so.
I mean, I will just say, long time ago when I first got into the business, I was an art director on a show called I Didn't Know I Was Pregnant. And every single episode, we had a woman giving birth to a baby. We were doing recreations. She was giving birth to a baby that she didn't know she was pregnant with. And we got ourselves a bunch of babies that looked way more convincingly newborn than that baby did. So just that's a no-budget show on TLC. But anyway, let me be positive for a second and go back to our compare and contrast, because I will say, to Ron's point, I think the production design, if I may put my art director cap back on for something other than babies, was really on point in this episode, or excuse me, in this movie. This sort of retro futuristic setting. I love the way that they put the rocket pad kind of out in the East River, extending from Manhattan, kind of everything they did with the city, everything they did with Galactus's ship, everything they did with the Fantastic Four's ship and docking with the Lightspeed engine. Like, all of that was masterful. And I think it's interesting because we did have an extended discussion in our reboot about whether or not to embrace a 1960s setting. And I get that this wasn't a 1960s setting, but it was heavily inspired by in an alternate reality, which maybe was sort of splitting the hair as best they could. But let's take a look at what we said about the 60s setting.
So look, let's address the one elephant in the room, which is everyone and their mom wants to do a Fantastic Four in the 60s. And I think the reason why is because, like you said, like, Fantastic Four almost feels so old-fashioned that it's just like, the easy thing to do is just set it in an old-fashioned time where it makes more sense. But I would almost say, like, let's try to get around that by addressing it. Like, address the meta-ness of, like, what in this world where there are Captain Americas, and at least he used his thing for the army and for missions, and there's Iron Man and there's Spider-Man. It's like these four misfits, this weird family. It's like, do we even need you guys? I almost say, like, lean into that for your themes or for your story. Like, don't run away from it.
I just want to jump on really quick. There's a lot of fan ideas out there that are frankly terrible. And I'm going to come down really, really hard right now. Like, this idea that the Fantastic Four should have their origin in the 60s, should get lost in the negative zone, and then should sort of appear fully formed in the modern day MCU. Like, oh, we finally escaped the negative zone and now we're here to join the party,
Right.
is friggin' terrible. And I'll tell you why, just from a storytelling standpoint. Number one, the man out of time angle was already handled with Captain America about as well as it could be handled. Number two, the idea of going back and using some of the original Marvel characters as like the precursors was already done with Michael Douglas and Ant-Man, was already done with Tony Stark's father. Like, they've covered that ground. And so to now try to retrofit in, oh, even before them, there was this whole other era with Reed Richards and his team. Stupid. It's stupid. So there was our kind of harsh thoughts on setting this in the 1960s. So there's kind of two things that I want us to start discussing with that. Number one, just what did you think of this compromise? It's not the 60s, but it's an alternate universe that looks like the 60s. And number two, what did you think of the decision to essentially have no connection to the MCU, which is the polar opposite of what we did in our reboot, where we were very firmly fitting it into at the time, yeah, I guess it was still a post Endgame MCU. Now, this was before a lot of other things happened, which we're going to get to. But what just was this satisfying as a Marvel movie, being so completely and really obviously disconnected from everything else they're doing?
I never, unless it was stated in the movie and I just missed it, like, I never took it that it wasn't the 60s in whatever world this was. Like, all the technology, or at least like the cameras and recording to a vinyl LP, like, I never got any hint that this wasn't the 60s where they were. To which my point, or while watching it, I was like, I guess it looks cool, but at the same time, it's like, I don't think it, like, they didn't use the 60s to their advantage. Like, this just, like, this could have taken place in any Earth world at any year. It doesn't change anything. Like, if anything, it's like, well, if you're gonna do it, even though I didn't want it, if you're gonna do it, like, use the 60s, but they don't. Like, it's not even colorful like the 60s. It doesn't, like, I don't know, maybe that's part of my big gripe with this. Like, it wasn't fun, you know, like, and when I think of like the 60s and kind of that kind of like, you know, flower power and Beatlemania and all that stuff. Yeah. And it like, what was the point of putting it there? I guess, like, it didn't help the story. It didn't hurt the story. It just was like, okay, I guess, you know?
Yeah. Well, you know, what's interesting was, for a minute before what happened, like, again, spoilers, you already know this, but before what happened, I thought that this was going to be one of the ballsiest, like, one-off movies that they put into Marvel completely randomly, because I was like, okay, they're clearly not going to try to connect to the MCU, like, which means, like, they're almost saying, we don't care if you don't care that this is connected to the MCU, which makes this ballsy. And then I thought they were going to kill off Sue. I thought for a second, just for a second, I thought, dude, if they kill Sue right now, we now have a story where Reed Richards is a single dad to the most powerful being in the planet, and he is unprepared because we've just seen him not be a good dad multiple times. And, like, now there's a story going forward if they did that. And I was like, oh, they're not going to do that. The kid's going to do the thing, and the thing's gonna be the thing. And then we get again, spoilers, we get a little scene of Doomsday at the end, of Doom at the end, which is obviously going to be leading into Doomsday, which is going to have some kind of multiverse thing, which is what they tell us in that millisecond thing, if you want to put it together. And it bothered me a lot.
We'll come back to Doom, but let's just hang for a second. Ed, I just wanted to get your thoughts on the 1960s setting and the connection to the MCU or lack thereof, especially vis-a-vis our pitch, which was very firmly sort of trying to figure out, how do you create the Fantastic Four in a world where the entire rest of the Marvel Universe already exists? This one just essentially said, like, screw it, we'll give them their own universe.
Yeah. And I think also we had pitched, or we had talked about on Greatest Pod, things like they're going to lose. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
We really pitched that about a lot. Like and I think we were really early on that theory. Then it became like a very popular fan theory that, oh, it's obvious they're going to lose and they're going to come to the new universe all like pepped up on like, oh, I fucked my universe up, I got to help this one. And that's going to clash with the heroes. Everybody had that thought. Not really what happens. So that was kind of interesting, honestly, that bit of prediction didn't go. And I agree with everybody on the production design shit. And I agree that it's 60s situation. I felt like they were just trying to make a new palette. And I understand that the palette was a little bit muted, but I kind of like that on some level. I don't know. I kind of fell for the muted palette. I don't like it on like shit like Loki. It's all brown. That show looks like shit, literally. But like I like this muted palette. It was like those like al fresco paintings that people do of stuff. It was like sort of impressionistic almost, and it had like little zeppelins and weird shaped buildings and stuff. And also, the last thing's last, it wasn't the real 60s. There wasn't really racial upheaval or all this bad stuff, because ostensibly Reed Richards saved everybody from it. And he just this weird egalitarian society where everybody just looked up to these guys and these guys were good guys and everything was very simple like that. And then they finally got a threat that was so big it was going to kill the whole planet. They've been beaten up. It's so funny how they just do a newsreel of all the people they've been beaten up. You know what I mean? And then they just sort of lay that to the side. That was so weird. We can touch on that in a second. But like now that they've done that shit, they're not really prepared for Galactus, much like in the comics. They had beaten up Mole Men and did this shit. But when a dude comes to eat the planet, no one's ready for that, especially these slapdash astro fuckers. So, you know what I mean? So, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, maybe another interesting not there plot point. What was that half scene where the police went and arrested all those guys off screen, where Reed Richards was like, oh yeah, that's me. I set up stings against the wizard and the mad thinker and yada, yada. And it was just like, what's that? What is that supposed to be? They really just glossed over so much.
Dude, you know what I think that was, just
Also,
real quick, that they were just trying to make it like he had solved this level crime.
Yeah.
And it's just such a simple scene, but I get why it would just be like, it does seem like a throw in and a weird thing. But I think right after, it seems like he solved all simple crime. The sky splits and a chick on a board and all this shit happens. It's like, it's kind of corny, the timing.
Yeah.
I mean, also sending out regular cops to go deal with the wizard is insane.
Well, he's the lame version in this universe. I guess.
Yeah. He's not Graviton.
If I'm going to return to anything, speaking of Graviton, we'll get there too. But it just seems like there's so many ideas in here that could be good, but they just don't run full speed toward any of them. Like this idea that Reed Richards solved the world and then Galactus shows up is great, but it's like, aside from a few lines with cop cars in the background, Reed Richards seems more like a celebrity scientist than he does the savior of the world. You know what I mean? So it's like, it just doesn't, it can't full-throatedly declare anything, this movie, which I think is interesting. To that point, our Fantastic Four was dealing with a honestly much more insurmountable for them threat. We wanted to do the Secret Invasion plot, and I'm just going to cap off this conversation about how we do or do not connect to the Marvel Universe. We were pitching at a time before Marvel did Secret Invasion. And you could probably guess where this conversation is going to go, but let's hear our thoughts about using the Secret Invasion storyline in a pre-Nick Fury Secret Invasion Disney Plus show world. Here it is.
Because they have since announced they are doing a limited series called Secret Invasion, and we've already seen Nick Fury in, I believe, the Spider-Man Far From Home. Yeah, yep. Spider-Man Far From Home post-credit series, building what seems to be a sword orbital platform. So there's a lot of our pitch coming to the MCU. I still wouldn't necessarily be surprised if they tried to tie the Fantastic Four's origin into Secret Invasion. Will they do it the exact same way we're talking about here? Maybe not, but I could see it.
I think they're going to draw it out more, which is the reason why they're considering it a series. Whereas I think I'll just speak for myself. I personally want to see that over and done with, because I don't get the V, like that old ass show V with the lizard people.
Yeah.
I don't get that. I don't get that, and I don't really like that.
Wow, Ed doesn't like something. That's crazy.
Well, let's just kind of talk about for a second. We were pitching Super Skrull as kind of the big bad of our movie, and Super Skrull did show up in Secret Invasion. I don't know that we need to share our thoughts on Secret Invasion, but I do think that this is of a piece with Marvel just whiffing opportunities in these Phase 4 and Phase 5 series and movies. And this is probably going to lead into our conversation about Doom and the possibility of setting up Doom. But like, I don't know, guys, just what are our thoughts about, we had this very integrated pitch about Secret Invasion sort of being the introduction of the Fantastic Four to the world of Marvel. And like, that's their big coup de grace that places them firmly on top of the pantheon of superheroes in the MCU. Do we think there's going to be an effective way to take this Fantastic Four and inject it into the MCU that we know? How do we feel about that prospect?
Our pitch, I think one of us said it in the actual episode, but it was like we almost took kind of that Mystery Men formula where it's like we made our Fantastic Four like they were the only people left to do the job, and in the course of our movie they earned their stripes. Now it just feels like with the ones that we have, like assuming they get over to the regular Marvel universe, it's just like you're just another being, and you're not as like, maybe Sue is as powerful as, like, you're not a Wanda, you're not anyone better or worse than anyone else. Like it's feeling less and less special. So I don't know. It's like I guess it'll just be fun to see this is what I would have said. I would have said it would be fun to watch like a Johnny personality, up against like a Shang-Chi. But Johnny, ironically, is such a wet blanket in this movie that I just don't like. You could have given Johnny's lines to almost anybody and it probably still would have made sense. So cool. I guess they're going to interact but they're not the saviors. Whereas like our pitch was so cool. It was like, once we get all our Avengers back, they realize like, oh shit, like this is amazing. There's 4 heroes here that are not only at our level, possibly like they did something we couldn't do. And it's just, I don't see the Fantastic Four now doing that.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, look, I enjoyed Sue being a total badass at the end there. Like there's like I enjoyed that part. I thought that was cool. But what we pitched to me is like a cooler plot that put all of those characters in bigger danger and makes them have to come together in order to win, because there's no choice. They have too much adversity to do anything but to gel as a team and a family with what we pitched. Whereas this, they're already basically a team. They sort of already kind of are a family. And so then they fought the guy and they won, and then that's it. And it looks like Dr. Doom is going to kidnap their baby. And that's
Let
it.
me, wait, can I ask a question? Why is this movie called First Steps? They've been the Fantastic Four for 4 years. The kid doesn't take any steps, so he's not the first steps. Like, why? What is First Step about this movie?
They don't take any steps into another universe. They don't do it. I mean, yeah, I agree with you.
For fuck's sake, even the plot is not the first step. They literally take 4 sequences from Rise of the Silver Surfer and do them over again. When Johnny went after her on the board, I was like, "Are you kidding me? Are you kidding me?"
That was wild.
And that's Ron. To your point, that's exactly how I knew Sue wouldn't die at the end, because I was like, "Oh, because they've already done this." Sue kind of half died in the other one, and then she was brought back. She's not going to die.
Let's play another clip real quick, because we just as an aside, and we're going to get into casting, because casting was a big element of our original discussion of this reboot. But Ed made an interesting point about how Johnny, in a casting sense, is really the linchpin of the Fantastic Four. And I think we could say that the new movie did not take that lesson. So let's just talk about casting Johnny Storm real quick.
I think Johnny's the hardest one because it's just some handsome guy to some people, but then a lot of people don't understand that he has to be able to have a little bit of that rage inside of him. I personally, I've seen fan castings before where they go, he has to be beautiful and handsome, and they picked the guy who played the lifeguard in the 2nd or 3rd season of Stranger Things. Forgot what that guy's name was, but like
Dacre Montgomery.
Yeah, that guy. He's from England, which you would never suspect because those English dudes. The first thing they
He's
teach
Australian, actually.
Oh, okay. Well, the first thing they teach these fools is how to do an American accent. As soon as they get out the womb, they're just like, nobody wants to hear us talk, mate. So you gotta talk like this, okay? This is what you have to talk like if you want to make some money. The Beatles sung in regular English, okay? So and I think they do that to him. But bottom line, they picked that guy because he's so handsome and he has such a presence and he has a little bit of darkness to him. But I don't care about him being handsome.
Here's the interesting thing. You could have cast either Dacre Montgomery or Joe Keery from Stranger Things and had a better end product than what we got with Joseph Quinn.
Yep.
Yeah. And I don't know if that's Joseph Quinn's fault per se. Like, they just didn't give that dude anything to do. It was like, why he wasn't mad about anything ever. It was like, there's a girl flirting with me. I've done this thing. I'm doing the thing. I'm listening to this. And he seemed more distracted than,
well, that's the thing.
I don't know.
I would argue that they gave him quite a bit to do, actually.
Okay.
You just never got a real handle on like what he wanted. Like what was driving him? What was motivating him? And it's like, obviously, to save the world, I get it, but you know, whether he's a womanizer, there's like 2 lines about how he really is into space and really wants to get back into space, and Reed isn't allowing him to.
So I thought the story beat for them was going to be friction between Reed and Johnny, because he's like, he gets all butthurt that Reed never did his like designs for new spacesuits or whatever. But then like 2 minutes later, Reed's like, oh, by the way, I made your spacesuit. And he's like, awesome. And it's like, that's it. The problem solved. Again, just like the whole like the Reed with just like, I have to think terrible things in order to create things that stop terrible things. And Sue's like, well, that sucks. And then later she's like, but Reed's actually nice. And Reed's like, you're right, I am. Problem solved. It's like we kept doing this over and over. But yeah, with Johnny, I thought that was going to be part of it. I thought he was going to somehow, his story would kind of bump up against Reed, and it never happened. So I was like, yeah, Johnny was just there. They paid a lot of lip service to like, oh, he's a womanizer. Yeah, I'm a womanizer. I've kind of said hi to this alien, so I'm flirting. I was like, what? Yeah.
Ed, did you like Joseph Quinn after having that strong feeling about casting the Johnny Storm?
No. No.
Simple as that.
And they did do the thing that I knew they were going to do, which is cast some English person with a dubious American accent. You're doing like 60s dialect American accent. It's hard. And Vanessa Kirby was trying to do like this mid-Atlantic thing. I let it slide. But like Homeboy, I just didn't, I guess, because I don't like him, I guess. And like I do agree with Ron though. I'm looking at other actors play those exact scenes, and you just like look like some exasperated Muppet going like, I want to get back into space. Thanks for putting me back into space, Dad. Or like flying up and touching the board again and being like, you're super hot. Okay, I'll remember that later and translate it on my gold records like the Beatles. You know what I'm saying? It's so ridiculous. So I can just imagine any great actor that fucking put Cary Grant in those situations. It's not going to get any better.
Yeah, I don't think it'll get much better. Like, I really don't. But like, I mean, but you're right. He didn't do anything with what he was given, arguably. Like maybe somebody else could have added some nuance to it, but I don't think there was a ton to work with. And I think that's a big part of the problem is they were like, how do we get to, it feels like another Marvel movie where it's, how do we get to Doomsday? Because that's what we're trying to get to. Here's the movie, how we get to Doomsday. And I assume it's going to have something to do with Franklin Richards and something to do with, you know what I mean? It's
that's Marvel's problem, and that's been a problem for 10 plus years. It's the same reason why I feel like Age of Ultron, everyone was just like, okay, fine, because they already told you that Infinity War was coming, so you knew that this one was not as interesting. Same thing with this Fantastic Four. You tell me at the beginning of this movie, this is a world that I don't know anything about because we have spent no time here. But you've also told me that there's something way better coming later. So the whole movie, whether they meant for this to happen or not, you're just like, well, how do we get out of here? How do we get out of this world and get to the one that matters? Whereas if you hadn't told me Avengers Doomsday was a thing, maybe I could have swallowed it a little bit easier. And you put your fucking keyboards down, everyone that's like, you always say that these movies should stand alone. They should. But in this case, you've already told me that these people are going to be in an Avengers movie in a different universe. How am I not supposed to start putting the thoughts together of like, well, then why does this Earth matter if clearly something way bigger is going to happen pretty soon somewhere else? Like, it just, the stakes immediately lower. I kind of thought Galactus was going to eat this world. It's like, well, who gives a shit? Because you're not going to live here after the next Avengers movie anyway. You know?
Well, and to be honest with you, I thought that was going to be their big bait and switch, maybe as soon as like halfway through the movie. I thought that like they can't just ride this Galactus thing all the way to the end. And you know what? When they showed us the empty Latvian delegate seat in that early scene with the Future Foundation, that just made me go, oh, holy shit, maybe they will. Because exactly to your point, Billy, we know not only are they going to bounce to another universe and have adventures, but the adventures are all going to be because a villain that is inextricably tied to them is up to some shenanigans. And then in the first scene of this movie, you're going to tease that villain and then never do anything with it. How am I actually supposed to get invested in this? All feels like an appetizer at that point. That was wild to me.
Hey, that's the first steps. Hey, you're gonna eat a meal. The first step is a little crumbs. You take these little crumbs. three courses of crumbs.
And here's the crazy part, by the way. All this complaining that we're doing, I don't think this is a terrible movie. By
Ron,
the way,
don't like, you don't need to soften it. You don't need to soften
I know.
it. Yes.
I know. I don't. But I don't.
Yeah, go ahead.
But I'm saying, like, I went to the movie, I watched it, and I had an okay time. Like, I don't think it was like the worst. I don't even think it's the worst.
Movies are too expensive to have an okay time. If you're gonna give me Disney Plus, if you're gonna give me a Disney Plus episode for $20 to go see it, like, no, I have the right to be like, this. You just repainted the old model. You took the best parts of 2007 movie. You redressed them. You put them in a fancy new 60s thing that didn't make any sense. It didn't add anything. It didn't take any. It just felt like the worst appeasement of the internet community. Like, I'm sorry, this movie, the
No, it's
more we talk about it, the lower my score goes, because I'm just like, what the was this? This was so, it was boring for a lot of it. And when it was the shit that was awesome, the Galactus stuff, again, to Bill's point, was like, this is so cool. But I also know that this doesn't mean anything past whatever's going to happen in the next half an hour, because after that, that's when the quote unquote real story starts. And that's been Marvel's problem for over a decade. And since Endgame, they really have had a hard time shaking that, because everyone's just waiting for the, like, well, call me when you do your next Infinity War. And that's kind of where we are. And this did not help.
Well, and check this out. This is this is what I think would have fixed it, which is Galactus. They can't beat Galactus. He destroys the universe. They try to save them and their baby by dimension hopping, and fucking Galactus claps on and now goes to another universe to start eating planets. And they have dragged Galactus to the 818, and now everyone fucking hates them because they brought Galactus.
By the way, sorry, the 616, the 818 is the valley.
616. That's where I live.
Drag Galactus to the valley.
Code.
That's call me, guys. 818. But the 616, they
213.
they come to the valley, into North Hills, and they hang out with me. But what I'm saying is that, like, even that, at least there's consequences to any of the stuff that happened in that movie. There are no consequences to this movie. Nothing. There's nothing consequential at all.
Yeah, it's the definition of a self-contained movie, kind of to Billy's earlier point, in the worst way, when you're supposed to be operating within a shared universe. And I'm just going to say right now, our Fantastic Four pitch had a way that this movie, as it is, could have used Doom in a much more effective way. In our movie, we also weren't using Doom as the main antagonist. We said that that's a mistake, especially when you're trying to tie Doom to the Fantastic Four's origin, which he never was in the comics. But we said, just treat Doom as an extant entity. He exists in the world, and as our Fantastic Four is scrambling for the solution to undo the Skrull invasion and bring back the Avengers, one of the resources that they tap is the ruler of Latveria. In our movie, he basically tells them, F off, I want nothing to do with your adventures, with some intimation of a connection to Reed Richards. The movie that they made, Fantastic Four First Steps, had a sequence where they were running around the world trying to put together a MacGuffin to undo the damage that was coming. Only the movie we barely got a montage, and doubling down on it then, they had a scene where they are in communication with nations all over the world, coordinating efforts. And I was just waiting for somebody to get on the goddamn phone with Dr. Doom, and they still didn't do it.
Yep.
Which, by the way,
going to happen.
That's when I was like, in my seat, I was like, oh, this is why they put this in the 60s, because we know in current day, we don't work together when something global happens, because we already saw that when the pandemic happens, we don't work together. So you got to go to the 60s to maybe try to live out this fantasy of a global response to a threat, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I read that as being more of like, oh, that's all the good the Fantastic Four have done in the world, where it's a united planet now. But yeah, whatever, you know.
Yeah, I think there was a plenty of 60s stuff. And frankly, just like I've always said, the 60s that most people remember starts around 1967, 68. The 60s were the freaking 50s. And this movie, if you really look at it, looks like a futurist's version of the 50s. With the stupid fucking, they got the hats, people wear suits, and I personally like that, honestly. In the 50s, where everybody wasn't racist, they let the black reporter ask the last question at the press conference. I was like, damn, Reed Richards must have did a double whammy. Him and
I
Thurgood
don't
Marshall must have did a tag team match, daddy.
It's not that I don't like how it looks. In fact, I think it at least it looked differently. You know, it was something new to look at. But to my point was just like, but what did that really do for the story? You know, like it didn't
Like you
make
said,
a difference.
The thing about the world, the thing about how simple they're like jacking in like John Wick operators to everybody in the world.
But if we're in a different world, it could have been a futuristic present day. You know, like I guess just like you did the 60s because it looked cool and you kind of wanted to compromise with the internet, but you didn't go all in. And therefore it doesn't make a difference.
One last thing. It does make a difference because I think what is posited in this world is that the first space people was reading them. Because they did not say, oh yeah, they went up after some other. They're like, look, I thought of with the best minds, the Oppenheimers of our time, and I got together with us and we got up to space, me and my friends who just happened to be the most qualified. Woo! From a certain point of view, this movie's it's a doozy. so he crews up with the most qualified people who just happen to be his best pal, including Johnny, the translator. I didn't know he was taking a translator up into space. My bad. I thought it was stupid. Now I understand. So anyway, so all I'm saying is it's positive that this dude was the father of the space movement, period. After he had made the Earth cool, he went into space and then came down all messed up, which dissuaded other people going to space. So space became his province. I think that is 60 stuff.
I feel like you extrapolated a lot of that on your own, and that is not in the 60s. But I'll give it to you, but I feel like a lot of that was not in there, and ultimately is kind of inconsequential to the plot itself anyway. Like it doesn't really matter.
The second time we go into outer space, hold on. The second time we go into outer space, we meet a giant alien who wants to eat the planet. That's not significant. Okay. That is significant. The 60s,
but what does that have to do? What does it matter if Reed was the first person in space or not? It makes no difference. If he's already coming back a superhero, it doesn't matter if 5,000 people went into space or 5 or 1. It doesn't make a difference. The fact of the matter is, people don't love him because they were the first astronauts. They love him because they beat up the mole man. So they love him because they're heroes, and because like Stark, he's able to retrofit people's cars, and that's why the police cars look like Back to the Future cars and shit like that. It had nothing to do with the 60s. And even if it did, I'll give you the benefit of the doubt. Sure, it did. But again, not really enough to move the needle. Whether it was the 60s and they sent Reed in space because he was the first one there, or if it was present day, they sent the Fantastic Four because they're the only heroes on this world. It makes no difference when the time is.
I mean, the one thing I'll say about it not making a difference, it makes a difference because our version of being in the modern day was literally better.
Yes, our version
I'm
meant
something. I'm not defending that part of it. I'm just saying the story that they told, I think they had to put it in the 60s. But I wouldn't have done that.
And like, why are there records? Why are there records if you can build a flying car?
I mean,
a faster than light drive. A faster than light drive.
You build a faster than light flash drive, and you have a record.
Because they have to sell this aesthetic now that you're in the 60s, even if it doesn't make any sense.
See, I will push back in that I dug the fact that it's like, yeah, they have flying cars and faster than light engines, but also like all their TVs still appear to be cathode ray TVs. They're just the size of buildings. There's something funny, like that's goofy in a way that works for me.
The tape inside Herbie's face,
is
hilarious. I'm sorry, that's cool. That's us.
Look, I'm not trying to be like, I hate it. I'm just saying, like, my point this whole time has just been like, but what was the point? And if you were going to do the 60s, I just wish you would have lived in it a little bit more, used it a little bit more. For fuck's sake, use the color red a little bit more, anything. But it's just like the flower power of 60s was nowhere to be found here. And I know that was the choice, but it made the movie less fun. Like it was so morose for most of it. I was like, this is just not fun. I will take those 2005 2007 Fantastic Four movies any day of the week over this one, because even with all the stuff those got wrong, I feel like at least those were fun, and at least I believe that the 3 out of the 4 of those people were blood relatives and family, whereas this Johnny looks like he was just someone that stumbled in and got recruited, and he's trying to earn tenure on the team. Like there's nothing that reeks of family in this movie. I've dropped it down to a 4 now. 4 out of 10. That's my rating.
The line is going down.
It's going down, baby.
Can we talk about the consequences of not having fun? I bet if we wanted to, we could go back to Superman and be as nitpicky as we're being right now. But because we had a fucking blast watching Superman, we are not nitpicking it nearly as much. And I think that that's part of the problem. We watched this movie and it didn't bring you a bunch of joy when they won. It didn't bring you you didn't watch, like, I watched that one moment of the surfing through the tube and the stuff and admired that art. And other than that, I had no fun really watching this movie. And I think that that's now what I've been thinking about, because I was sitting in the car just as I got done texting with Billy, going like, why am I not feeling this movie? Why did I not want to clap at the end of this movie, by the way? Because when I watched Superman, I clapped at the end of that movie like immediately, because it felt like a joyful and fun ending to the movie. And I don't know what the consequences of that movie even are as well, by the way. But at the same time, I had such a great time that it made up for these weaknesses that were probably in there that I'm skipping as of right now. And I can't skip the ones in Fantastic Four because it wasn't fun. Our movie, if we made our movie, that shit is fun. I'm telling you, our movie would have been fun.
Well, and I think a big part of that equation will come down to casting. And so we've spoken a lot about Joseph Quinn as Johnny Storm. One of the things that really struck me in this movie, well, 2 things. Number one, Matt Shakman, the director, is one of the most prolific directors of It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia, consistently one of the funniest shows on television. And so the lack of comedic chemistry in this movie was wild to me. Like, that was strange, because if there was one thing I would think that dude could do right, it's the irreverent banter between 4 people who are just too close to each other for their own good.
Yeah, I laughed at one joke the entire movie. One joke the entire 2 hours.
Yeah, and I think some of that comes down to, I don't know if they were miscast, misdirected, or just given a dour script. But all 4 of the Fantastic Four are pretty glum in this movie. If you think about it, look, Reed Richards is probably most in his character, but even he in the comics, like, as much as he can be a man who takes the weight of the world on his shoulders and becomes very insular and closed off, he also is genuinely delighted by shit he doesn't know and has never seen before. Like, even if the universe is going to end, if he gets to experience something he's never seen before, that's about the only thing that lights him up as a character. Sue Storm, yes, she has to take care of this motley crew of dysfunctional men, but also they are her joy, and the family is her joy. And in this movie, she had a lot of very weighty things to say about being a family, but the joy was pretty absent. And yes, Ben Grimm struggles with being a monster, but he's also just a good old boy from the old neighborhood. And goddamn, if I didn't think Eben Moss-Backrack was the perfect casting for that. And I don't know if he was just out of his element with like the mocap performing or what, but again, just an even glumness that kind of bummed me out. So I don't know. Do you guys have strong thoughts? Did anybody feel miscast, or was it more the script? Where are your thoughts at?
I mean, like in terms of like humor falling flat, I just didn't think that there was much in there. Like there weren't a ton of jokes, which maybe there doesn't have to be, but if you're gonna have any Marvel movie be half a comedy, I would think it would be Fantastic Four. I actually thought, what's his name that plays the Thing? Eben Moss.
Backrack, yeah.
To me, he was like my far and away my favorite character. I thought he stood out the most. I enjoyed watching him the most, even if some of the CGI looked a hair off sometimes mostly when he's walking, like not running, walking. It looked kind of weird. When they come out of the space shuttle after they land, after Sue's had the baby, that was the one where I was like, something looks really weird. Like that didn't render right. I thought Pedro was actually great. I enjoyed him. He seemed like he wanted to be there. I thought Vanessa Kirby was really good, but yeah, she just was so just stone-faced dour the whole time. And then I've already made it clear that I think Johnny, that role was written poorly and it was miscast. Sorry.
Ed and Ron, thoughts on the casting? What do you guys think?
I mean, I liked the Thing. Honestly, that's the big one that I like enjoyed the guy who played the Thing a lot. I liked all these. In fact, I legitimately wanted more moments with the Thing talking to Natasha Lyonne and hanging out with kids. I felt like that would have been an interesting part of the movie and made me like the whole crew even better. Just
That's all right. Ed,
I felt like it was a softer thing than like you did freeze, but I was just going to add to yours, like this was a softer thing than Michael Chiklis's performance, which I liked. Like the Michael Chiklis thing, I don't think would have stopped and done a little show for the kids like this one did. So that I liked. The beard was kind of weird. I was like, okay, sure,
I dug it.
Well,
why not? Yeah.
Well, it was kind of like when they give Transformers beards. You know what I mean?
I was like, oh, I've never thought about what that would look like, but I'm glad I know now, you know?
Right. Just him trying to shave and stuff. That's kind of interesting. But I mean, personally, for me, as far as aesthetics, or as casting and all that, I think the Thing was pretty cool. I think a little bit, maybe it's just stereotypical, but a little bit gruffer performance may have been more lasting in one's memories. I did like the way that he performed the character. I like how he had to work himself up into being like it's clobbering time, you know, because it's so stupid. And he's a big, gentle guy who flies planes. He touches instruments. You know what I'm saying? Even as the Thing, he can work all the human-sized instruments in a super plane. You know what I mean? He's an artist unto himself. So I like the soft-spokenness, but at the same time, I just think nobody in the movie was as memorable as I wanted them to be. I think as a unit, they make this impressionistic painting of the Fantastic Four that I think works just fine, frankly. But I notice when you just turn it to the side, it is very impressionistic. Which, you know, because they hand wave a lot of stuff. Oh, everybody who went up is a genius. Johnny is too. That's a big hand wave. There's no racism. There's no fight over energy. Everybody's pretty cool. Boom. You know what I'm saying? They just really like hand wave over a lot of stuff and do it with montages and found, 60 stock footage. And it's kind of cute and it's in a TV way, which is damning, you know, on some level. But in a TV way, the way they hand wave a lot of plot elements is pretty cute. But over the course of time, the weight of those and the flimsiness of that starting package, once we get to the world-ending jazz, and like you guys have said, it doesn't seem like anything matters. Now, me personally, I've always wanted to see Galactus depicted, so maybe I'm like a Snyder bro for Galactus or whatever. So, like, I think the fact that we got a Galactus that was a big ass dude with a big head, with
that was awesome,
and all that stuff, and even him walking through the city and all that jazz. And yeah, I really like the Silver Surfer. I think her arc is super unearned. I think we need about a couple scenes. A scene of her thinking like she's going to be a good guy, that she betrays him a little bit, that she feels bad about it, and then saves him for ultimate death, maybe, but then says, "Fuck you, I'm out of here," and then comes back like Han Solo at the end or something like that. I could buy that. but just
Yeah.
it was like one scene and then boom, he just inundates her with this like I don't know, this slideshow that he's able to get on every TV
Audio
with his watch.
slideshow at that.
Yeah, come on, bro. Like
Yeah, if this was D&D, he roll a nat 20 to get that reaction. Like he had to roll the perfect roll to get that reaction, and it's wild.
He got to somebody with a podcast. You know what I mean? That's like the most incredible feat of all time.
Which, how did he get the audio of all these screaming, dying people from a world being eaten? Where did that come from?
It was intimated. Yeah, it was intimated that Reed had been receiving transmissions from deep space for a while, and so Johnny had all those recordings on the gold record.
Oh, that's what those were. I thought it was like whatever message he got from. I don't know. You know what? Never mind. I don't care. Like I stopped caring. I stopped caring.
I mean, like I would have liked to see a different Johnny Storm and those other three characters get a lighter version of this movie where there are consequences.
You know what's wild is I was walking out of the theater and you see a big poster for this movie, and it's so colorful and it just pops. It's so bright, and I was like, that shit is not what I just saw. Everyone saw a different movie than I did. That is not this movie. False advertisement. Take it down.
I thought this movie was a little bit more bright and colorful, at least visually, than I think you did, Billy. I got a lot of pleasure out of the visuals of this movie. I think it was brought down by sort of the weirdly not peaks and valleys of the tone, the fact that it lived right in this middle place and the characters all kind of lived right in this middle place. It reined the literal color in by being figuratively gray, but visually, I don't know. I think this movie kind of delivered what I wanted out of Fantastic.
There was one technical thing that I thought of, and full disclosure, I did not see this in IMAX. So I think if you saw this in IMAX, this probably negates this comment at all. I saw it in a regular theater, but that whole third act where Galactus comes to Earth, which by the way, that's worth going to see this movie for, is just that last third act.
Yeah.
I kept thinking, I was like, man, I wish this was framed at 185 instead of 239, because I feel like it would have shown off the height of Galactus a little bit better, make it feel a little bit bigger than it did. But I mean, that was my minor quibble, but I was just like, oh, I would have chosen to show this taller to really accentuate how big he is, especially like when they first go to see him and you see them kind of teeny tiny on the ground. Like, I don't know. Again, just like to Ron's point, when you're not having fun, that's where your brain starts to go, is you just start to look around at everything else, you know?
Yeah. I do think, I mean, if we are talking casting, Ralph Ineson as Galactus kind of killed it. His voice,
I think so too.
I think his voice, his overall presence, I know obviously the character was ultimately computer generated, but it clearly was both a facial and motion capture. I'm into his performance.
Yeah,
it looked
I'm cool with it.
Awesome. That's as cool as that shit's ever gonna look in real life, you know.
So hey, this movie's got that going for it. I just want to run through real quick. Our casting decisions got kind of bonkers when we were doing our Fantastic Four reboot, and they dovetailed both with this movie and with some of the other Marvel projects in really interesting ways. So again, this was back in 2020, but Ron, with coming out of nowhere, your very first pick for Reed Richards was Oscar Isaac, who not only is a really good friend of Pedro Pascal, but went on to become Moon Knight. I don't know. I just thought that in retrospect, Oscar Isaac, I think, feels like an even better Reed Richards pick than he did when you suggested it.
Yeah, I feel like he would have nailed this part. But honestly, I think Pedro did a pretty good job with what he was given. I just don't think he was given a lot. And Oscar would have nailed this too.
Ed, you suggested Ethan Hawke, which I think remains another really great possible Reed Richards. And he turned out to be Oscar Isaac's nemesis in the Moon Knight series.
Part of me thinks Ethan Hawke might have fit this tone of movie we got a little bit better than Pedro Pascal. Even though I love Pedro Pascal, but he almost seems like too bright for this movie. I feel like Ethan Hawke might have matched Vanessa Kirby a little better.
Yeah, I think that's an interesting point. Speaking of Vanessa Kirby, we did, I guess we almost short shrifted, but our Sue Storm, we said Emily Blunt, contrary to John Krasinski, would have been a perfect pick for Sue Storm. We were all very much on board with Emily Blunt and very much not on board with John Krasinski, even though one ended up happening and one didn't, and we were on the other side of that.
Yeah, it's crazy. That's crazy that just in that short time frame, we did get that Reed Richards. It exists. It's in that universe. But who would have known, right?
And who knows? Maybe we'll see him again as Reed Richards if we get a Council of Reeds in Doomsday or Secret Wars.
Entirely possible.
But then, Billy, you suggested, based on some fan casting, Lakeith Stanfield or John Cho, with both of whom I still think would have knocked it out of the park and brought some flavor to the role that, I don't know. I bought Pedro Pascal. I liked him. I think he's a fantastic actor, and I love him in almost everything I see him in. I just feel like he didn't quite find his footing in this movie. And so the performance as a whole comes across as a little uneven because it's like I don't know that he ever believed he's the smartest man in the world, but then sometimes you think he did, but then he doesn't necessarily have that sort of like drive and wonder about science and discovery that I talked about earlier. Again, it just is like, it's non-committal, which frustrates me.
I still think Lakeith Stanfield would have been a great choice for this. I don't know what I was thinking about John Cho. I disagree with 2020 Billy now, but I think Lakeith Stanfield would have been a cool choice.
Yep, I agree.
And one other interesting thing, just going back to the doom of it all, we landed on Javier Bardem, where we thought fan casting absolutely nailed it. I still think Javier Bardem as Dr. Doom would be most epic. However, there were two comments made. We don't have clips for these, but I made a note of this. So we did make a joke because Ron suggested Mads Mikkelsen. And at that point, he had already been in Doctor Strange as the villain. But we're like, hey, you don't really see Doom's face anyway, so why not reuse him? Which is now happening with RDJ. Yep. Ed specifically said, because Doom is behind a mask, Doom could be as old as RDJ and be in these movies for 10 years. Who cares?
That's right. That's right.
And then now RDJ will be in these movies for 10 more years.
From the mouths of babes. And then finally, we will just run a funny clip here because Billy suggested as our super scroll, Russell Crowe, who also ended up joining the MCU in a much less auspicious way. But let's just look at the clip real quick.
My older choice would be like Russell Crowe. Like, get that name value in, and I believe that he's lived a tough life as a Skrull.
Wow.
Oh, wow. Dude, that's kind of blowing my mind.
That's interesting.
Because, yeah, I think Russell Crowe would be right in line to be like, look, mate, I already tried this. I already tried this with that crap with the Universal Monsters. I already tried this, dude. And you could go, okay, but you don't have to be some goofy runner in a stupid universe. You could be a one-off villain. We'll give you some juicy monologues. You might get an Oscar for doing something that's 80% mocap, dude. And he goes,
That's it. I mean, Russell Crowe doing basically like James Spader in Age of Ultron, just one big, hammy, juicy villain performance. That's interesting.
And then he became a goofy runner in a crap universe, and he chose that one.
He should have been watching YouTube in Australia.
Well, and by the way, then he gave one big, hammy, chewy villain performance in frickin' Kraven the Hunter and wasted it.
Yeah.
Damn. Crazy.
Crazy. 2 bites at the apple.
I will just bring it all the way back around. It is a strange decision on Marvel's part, even more so now after watching this movie and realizing like, oh, you're not doing any sort of interesting shenanigans where in a world that Reed Richards exists, Tony Stark is driven to a jealous rage and becomes your Dr. Doom. Like, they laid no track for Doom. And whether it's Javier Bardem, whether it's reusing Mads Mikkelsen, whether it's getting Russell Crowe to come in and give a big performance, it just feels like Marvel could be trying to figure something like that out. Like, how do we get some venerable names in here to build upon this foundation that we have? And instead, it's like this whole idea of let's just start from square one, do kind of as little as possible, to Billy's point, recycle a bunch of stuff we've seen in old movies and call it a day, wash our hands of it. That is frustrating. It's frustrating.
That's the thing. And I kind of thought this in the back of my head when they said Galactus was going to be the villain in this. It was just like, we've waited so long for the Fantastic Four to come to the MCU, and in some ways it was damned if you do, damned if you don't. Like, we all had built up what it was going to be, or what it should be. But for the consensus to be, after all this time, let's just redo Rise of the Silver Surfer. Kind of like how like Dark Phoenix was a redo of X-Men The Last Stand. I'm not saying it's that bad of a drop-off, but I just feel, I was like, man, you got all these new toys. Like, you couldn't do anything different. You had to just fix that one from 2007. Like, I get, maybe they did this because they knew people wanted Galactus, because it's like Joker to Batman type thing. And it's like, let's just get him out of the way so you don't think about it later on when they join for Doomsday. I don't know, but I guess that's the thing. It's like, as much as I've been sitting here and it seems like I hate this, like, it's not hating for hating's sake, or just, it's more just like, man, I'm disappointed. Like, after all that build up, and that everyone was like, oh, the X-Men are finally going to come over when they bought Fox. Like, to me, I was like, no, the Fantastic Four, that's the one I'm excited for. And this just felt like they didn't even try to swing for the fences. They just like bunted to get on base. And I was like, okay, I guess you're on base, but still, like, I want to see you swing for the fences.
Yeah.
Ed?
Yeah, I mean, but I don't know, man. I think that's really easy to say, and I think I do think it hurts the product overall. This product will sell more than maybe something that was more adventurous, but at the same time, something that was really good and adventurous would obviously outstrip that, and they didn't allow themselves that, so that is bad. But I just think they did. It's a double. They're not on first. I think it's a double. And if they had had some courage, they could have stretched it to a triple. But they're on base. They're it's a double. But yeah, dude, they weren't trying to get a home run, and that does kind of suck. But again, hitting this ball though. This is Randy Johnson. It kills birds as it's coming at you, and they had to hit something. You know what I'm saying? So
but that comes out. That comes off in the movie. This movie feels safe, and it feels neutered. Every character feels neutered. Every plot choice feels neutered. Every nuance, every character interaction, it all feels like so fucking paranoid of making a mistake with this thing again, that for God's sakes, like, I'm not going to sit here and wax poetic about Fan 4 Stick from 2015, but at least they were like, fuck it, let's try to do like a body horror movie for half of it. It was like, I would rather them take a swing and have something to say about anything other than just like, well, here's what you expected. Here's what you expect with the Fantastic Four movie. It's like, okay, but you didn't say anything, you didn't do anything, and now I'm not super stoked to see them again. Like, I'm not mad to see them again, but I'm not like, can't wait to see them interact with the rest of the Marvel, because I'm just like, yeah, they're not fantastic anymore. They're the perfectly adequate four.
As you say, well, hold on. Just as you say that, Billy, one of the things that might be the sort of worst damning with faint praise of this movie is, like, if the next movie was Doomsday and it was just Johan Gruffudd, Jessica Alba, obviously you couldn't do it, but Chris Evans and Michael Chiklis rolling in from another universe, it really wouldn't be that different than these guys after this movie. You know what I mean? Like the substance of the characters, what we know of their past adventures, the baggage that they're bringing with them into that team up, there wouldn't be any substantial difference. It's literally just more age appropriate actors that audiences now enjoy more. That's all it is.
I mean, the only thing I would hard disagree on, it'd be like, but you'd get a Johnny everyone relatively universally liked, you know?
That one is kind of its own special case because they obviously couldn't. Well, in a world where RDJ is also Doom, who knows? But I would say they obviously couldn't keep Chris Evans as their in-universe Johnny Storm. But I don't know. I just think that that's the simplest way. I was just looking for like a concise way to sum up the disappointment that I think we're all feeling to certain degrees. Is just like you had a shot and you didn't miss your shot, but it's like you didn't do anything to distinguish it from the first time we did this 20 years ago, you know, and that I think is what's really frustrating.
Well, and also, you know, what's interesting is I'm looking at Superman and it feels like the DC universe is going to become this interesting, fun world where like, I don't know, like I have optimism that there's going to be some fun movies coming out of DC. And before it was like, man, this is some dour stuff. Does everything have to be Batman? And it's like, now I feel like Marvel has just gone down to being like, well, we're going to have some good movies, but most of it's going to be pretty dark and sad. So get ready for that. Like it feels like that's starting to happen with Marvel. And that's weird to me because I don't think Marvel is supposed to be dour. Even the Fantastic Four is not supposed to be dour to me. And this felt dour. And I hope that, and let me also say this. Remember earlier when I told you that we're the greatest at everything and that you should follow us? Go back and listen to our Fantastic Four idea. It's great. And I think it would have been better. And I'm telling you, listen to what we talk about and listen to the ideas that we had and ask yourself, would that story have been more fun and still look as cool put on the screen with everything that we painted with? You know, I'd say it does. I think we won this one. The Superman one, pretty close. This one, I think we won this one.
I mean, I was going to go through and get everybody's final, out of 10 grades. But the last thing I wanted to do before we do that is just talk about moving forward. You know, Franklin Richards seems to be the new Infinity Stones. Just to get it on record, any strong thoughts about where we go from here now? How do we think this is all going to play out?
Doom either kidnaps Franklin and uses him as some kind of cosmic battery to create a battle world or something along those lines, or even to do the thing that they did in that one run where Doom creates a whole universe where he's in control. It could be something like that, and maybe that's what Avengers Doomsday is. But my prediction is that they use Franklin as some kind of either battery or influence to remake the universe.
I'll just say I was on record a while ago saying that they were definitely going to use that Earth X thing of him basically becoming Galactus, because he had that cosmic hunger. He was that big of a being, and he just happened to be born to Earth people because of their genes. And then to have him chasing Franklin through the movie, I was like, yeah, that's right, mother. I was like, that's exactly right. Thank you very much. Called the hell out of that. And I think that's probably one of the ones where I'm just like, all right. See, I feel like Ron on the Knight Rider episode. They did my idea. That it's overall good. They did my idea. Freak y'all, But beyond that, yeah, it is just this weird thing of like, and Ron hit the nail on the head. They do a bunch of montages and BS up top to give you this light tone. And then they put you into an hour and a half of just dour, we're gonna die. and people rushing the building and throwing apples and stuff, and she got to go give a speech with a baby in her arm. It's like a lot of stuff. So I feel like, yeah, and there's even Snyderian images, like her being in front of a statue of her and her husband's exploits, holding her baby. Ben Grimm pulling the boat out of the water, Cavalesque, saving it or whatever. There's a lot of stuff in here that's almost like Marvel adopting. I'm not saying Snyder vision, but just this little bit of this, like, if Bob Dylan was playing under any of those scenes, would it be out of place?
Yeah.
Speaking of weird music choices, by the way, this doesn't relate to anything, so I have to get it out there. I'm sitting there waiting for the end credit scene. It's very rare in Marvel that an actual song plays. And I'm listening. I'm like, what is this? They wrote an acoustic ballad called Let Us Be Devoured, like from the POV of Galactus. It is the most bonkers fucking thing I've ever heard in my life. A Galactus acoustic ballad. It is on the soundtrack called Let Us Be Devoured. What the universe am I in? What is happening? That to me was like, I literally had to text Doug because I was like, why didn't you tell me that this is the strangest thing I've ever seen?
I also had that reaction in the theater. I'm sitting there watching the end credits and I'm just like, what is this song? Because it is also just a bad song. Like, aside from being a weird choice, it's just a bad song.
And I waited to see who wrote it. And it was like, dude, it was like two names, a lady's name and a guy's name, and her name was there like 2 or 3 times. I think she's related to somebody.
It is wild. She's
related to somebody.
That's like, could you imagine sitting through The Dark Knight at the end? There's a ballad called like How I Got My Scars. Like, that is so wild that this song is called Let Us Be Devoured. No.
I'm going to tell you what it sounded like.
No.
It sounded like a current 19-year-old who had taken 4 guitar lessons wrote a song that he thinks sounds like the 60s.
Interesting.
That's literally what it sounded like.
It doesn't even matter if it was, I don't know, fucking Ariana Grande. It's just bizarre to make a ballad based on your villain that eats worlds and is a cosmic deity. Like, bizarre. This whole endeavor is bizarre.
Which is a much better song.
If you are going to make that song, it should be psychedelic rock. Like,
Yeah,
let's get some Bowie. I mean, come on, that's acid rock all day. All right, let's wrap this thing up. Let's try and get some final scores. We're gonna go around the horn. I want to know first. Let's talk about our reboot first. Out of 10, where do you think we land with the pitch, the casting, the whole package we put together? Starting with Billy.
I think our reboot is 8.5 to 9 out of 10. Like, let's assume that Secret Invasion, the miniseries, didn't happen the way it did, and ours came out, was able to influence. Like, we killed so many birds with one stone. We told a brand new story. We made new heroes. We didn't rely on other Avengers, but we didn't deny that they were there. We used them in the correct capacity. We told an engaging story. We gave every character some sort of thing that they had to overcome, and it all boiled down to a central theme of trust. We really took the time to make sure that every little thing connected. So I feel like ours is so strong. I'm gonna say 9 out of 10.
All right, Ed, what do you think about ours?
Wow. I personally think the one knock I have against ours is I don't think we concentrated enough on gags. There wasn't enough gags in the pitch. Me as a producer, I'm looking at the pitch that we gave. We had them solving a big giant problem, like a bunch of people being taken over by aliens, but then we really kind of just sort of hand waved how they were going to deal with that. Like 4 people dealing with bunches of aliens and a super scroll. What was the action going to be like that would hamper all 4 of the characters while they were doing this stuff? I do agree with Billy that we had emotional arcs for them, but I just feel like it was quite ill defined. Besides, like, oh, a big battle with Graviton and Super Scroll, how would these four be occupied? It just did, that part was a little hazy. So I'll say 8.5. But for the strength of the plot, that's why we're up here near 10. The strength of that plot is amazing. And our entrance into the MCU is big D style. You know what I'm saying? We established these characters as capable replacements for people who are more experienced in them because they come from an outside point of view. And I think that was very excellent on our parts. It was a really interesting thing that we did. So,
and also one thing we didn't talk about real fast is we got thrown Herbie from John Peters, and
yes.
Ed's suggestion was just use him like a Jarvis, which is exactly what happened in this one.
Yep.
So good job, Ed.
Yeah, we were on the ball. Ron, what do you think? Our reboot, what would you grade it?
I'd probably be around the same as you guys, 8 to 8.5, maybe even a 9. And especially because, look, like a lot of the stuff that we would have been able to fix a lot of this stuff. First off, Reed would have come up with a way to identify scrolls with some kind of gadget. He would have come up with, like all the things that Reed would have been able to do because he's Reed. That would have solved a bunch of the problems, and so that's what I think. In my head, if we're writing this now, we've pitched this idea and we actually get to writing it, the gags would have come in because once we got to writing it, it would have hit gags because it would have had to. We would have solved a couple of these problems. Like, how do they solve the idea that they're fighting all these people? They don't know who those people are. They would have revealed who they were. How do we get, all of that sort of thing, I think would get revealed in the writing of the thing. But also, most importantly, at the end of this, when Reed rescues everyone from the negative zone and the thing gets to meet Korg, are you fucking kidding me? With that shit right there, that would have been gold. So,
well, I will round us out. I'm going to give ours a 7.5. Look, I also am very happy with the work that we did. I agree with some of Ed's criticisms. I don't have much more to say other than that, so I'm just going to stand by it. 7.5. Now, just real quick around the horn, final score on Fantastic Four First Steps from the MCU. Let's go, you know what? Let's go in reverse order. I'm going to say my final score for this movie, it's a solid 6 for me. I'm maybe going to say a 6.5. Again, it's a treat to watch visually. I like seeing Galactus done right, about as well as you could ever do him. I like the production design is some of the strongest we've ever had in the MCU, flat out. The story, it's not that it doesn't hang together. It just disappoints. And I think some of the performances do as well. I think the movie misses more than it hits in terms of comedy and in terms of heart. So 6 might sound generous, but I don't know. I'm feeling generous, and so I'm giving it a 6. Ron, what are you giving Fantastic Four First Steps?
All right. 5.5, maybe okay. A 6 as well. You've heard what I said about it. Like, there's a bunch of stuff that I have problems with. It does look beautiful, and there were a couple of great scenes in there, and I really liked the thing. So for all of that, I would give this, let me tell you this. If this was a standalone movie, where they solve the problem and then it doesn't connect to the MCU and it's almost like a finger, or Sue dies, I give you this as 7.5 or an 8. But because of what they did here, for having balls. And since they didn't do any of that, I just feel like it's a 5.5 or a 6.
Ed?
Yeah, I think I'm in the 6th Brigade. Okay. And honestly, I think I'd be, if I just one time, if I could mind wipe myself and watch it one time and have not spilled my popcorn, does it call back to what I said earlier? I think I could have seen this as a 6.5 or higher, but because that happened, I was in a more sober state. I wasn't in a feeding frenzy like normal. So I was able to see the flaws, and I think I got to go with 6. And rewatch value, like 5.5, bro. I would literally only watch the third act. I'd watch the third act and select parts of the first act if I were to watch this over again, which is a really weird impact on my score, which is why it stays in the 6 range rather than 6.5 is what I'm saying.
Yeah, I think that's right. Look, it's not a good sign when your second act is the part of the movie you don't want to watch, which is basically where most of the story is supposed to unfold. So, Billy, did we get all the way down to a 3 by the time we were done tracking this descent? Where are you at?
It's just, the more I keep talking about it, and I wasn't even angry leaving the movie, and now I'm getting worked up. It's a 4. It's not a Fantastic Four, but it's a 4. It's so disappointing. And you're right, like for the Fantastic Four, there's only kind of like maybe 2 big set pieces, or 2 to 3 set. I'm thinking like going to Galactus, and then the very end third act. Like everything else is just kind of like, so
there's clip shows and science,
Yeah, I'm radically disappointed by this. So a not Fantastic Four.
Well, there you go. In this episode of Reboot It, Us versus Them, I am declaring us the winner.
I agree with this. I agree with this one.
You know what? I do too. I feel like I'm comfortable with that result. I don't think we're blowing smoke up our own butt. I think in a head-to-head, which we just did, that's a fair outcome. If you feel differently, you at home, please leave us a comment. If you want to thumbs down this video, you can. Feel free. We ain't gonna stop you. We're not gonna hunt you down. You could do it. But if you think we made some good points, give us the thumbs up. Of course, leave a comment. We love your comments. We are doing rewinds again once we get to the end of this 5th season, so those comments will be responded to on air by your 4 favorite rebooters. Anything else to add, guys, before we close it out?
You know the deal, guys. Smash that subscribe button, push the notification bell, share with everybody, because like I said, we are amazing and you need to tell your friends about us.
And if you are watching this live next week, and if you're watching this on a playlist, next episode, we're closing out this season, baby. Big finale. Keep an eye on our community tab, because we're not going to reveal it here. You gotta play along with us. We're going to be breadcrumbing it along, but we will say, as is tradition here on Reboot It, it's going to be a live finale. So you can get active in the group chat. You can give us your thoughts in real time, and you can see us probably freeze once or twice and have some flubs along the way. So join us next time on Reboot It. For this one, I am producer Bill with Billy Business, Ed Greer, and Ron Swallow. We are the Reboot Crew, and we will see you next Reboot.